Good evening. Thank you for your comment, Shannon. You know, I don't know. I don't know. All I can say is this. The reason that I chose to duet this video was, one, I could hear in this guy, I could hear the pain in this gentleman's voice and also in the other guy that did the video. But also, I personally can tell you that when I worked for FEMA, especially in 2005 during Katrina, when I tell you that I met so many people that told me horrifying, devastating stories, some of those stories still haunt me to this day. I saw things you'll never ever imagine. You could never imagine. I try not to think about those stories or the things that I went through and witnessed. And I just can't imagine actually going through the trauma if it affects me the way that it does versus having to actually had gone through the hurricane. I mean, here we are, what, almost 15 years later, and it still bothers me. The stories that I heard from people. A gentleman who told me he witnessed a mother because FEMA had put a whole bunch of water, actually I shouldn't say FEMA, whoever it was, they put a whole bunch of water, like a few crates full of water in the center of the Coliseum in New Orleans during the hurricane. And then they walked away instead of passing the water out one by one, and people flocked to the water. So, and taking as many as they wanted. So many people were left without water. And this gentleman was in tears when I was signing him up for the shelter. And he told me that it did him in almost when he watched a mother walk up to the top balcony, take her 2 children, put them under her arms, and jump off. I know he wasn't lying. I could see it in his face. I could hear it in his voice. I could feel it. Excuse me. When I met an elderly man, the one that I did, that myself and 2 other gentlemen, teetered up the ladder, so to speak, to fix this gentleman's roof because the water was pouring in. He had been without power for a few weeks at that point. A few weeks. And I can't even, it was horrible. Take the filter off. It was horrible. Helping a daughter who couldn't afford to get her mom's ashes. She had been cremated, but she couldn't afford to pay to get her ashes. Helping her. Helping a woman who was petrified to go to the hospital to get her medicine. Helping her. Helping a grandmother who had 5 grandchildren who had been sleeping outside. I slept outside on the pavement. I remember we had been showering. At this point, we had been showering for like a week, only to be told to stop showering because we were showering in water that was filled with it had been filled with unalived bodies. So the water was contaminated. The devastation in those areas. Oh. I had to write my social security number on my arm in permanent marker in case the hurricane had hit, or the tornado, whatever it was. I can't remember. Can't think straight. But they told us to write our social security numbers on our forearms and on our bathroom mirrors in case the hurricanes had hit, so they could identify us, and I was down there to help. So I can just imagine what these people are going through right now. I've seen the horrors. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people lose everything. I've seen people living in their houses that were completely floor to ceiling filled with water, black mold all the way up the walls, and they were still living in them because they had nowhere else to go. So I can just imagine that. I mean, maybe it's a drama a little bit magnified to what this guy was saying. Maybe it hadn't been days, I don't know. But I can hear the pain in his voice. I can see it. I can see, you know, when the original guy that was telling the story. You know, sometimes we don't want to think that such horrible things can happen. It can't be, because it's easier to deal with that way. I mean, I know I used to think that it can't be that bad. That couldn't have really happened. But I'll tell you, going down, the first year I went down and helped, it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't that bad. I mean, I saw a lot of devastation, don't get me wrong, but the death wasn't an issue. It was just counties that I was going to figure out the damage and whatnot. But with Katrina, it was different. And it really put life into perspective and how blessed we are. How blessed we are. Like I said, one big thing that really, really resonated with me was when I was setting up the shelters. They had already set up the shelters. FEMA was there. We were there. We were taking applicants, you know, getting them registered and whatnot. And they were walking us around the facility. And I said, what's that caution tape over there for? Why is that area all cautioned off? And when he looked at me and he said, well, that's where we're putting the people that aren't going to survive. That's their area that they go to. Every time they put someone in that area, crushed my heart. Because I knew. So the point of this video is, yes, you know, it may seem absurd, it may seem unbelievable, but we just don't know. Regardless, what happened is horrible, and they need all of our love, our prayer, and our support. If anybody wants to donate on this app, donate to them, because they need it. God bless everyone. Much love to everyone.